Well, hello, spooky friends, and welcome back. So we've talked about haunted asylums, haunted psychiatric hospitals, but we've never actually talked about a haunted ship. And this one is for the record books. The RMS Queen Mary was launched in 1936. It was a flagship, amazing, gorgeous boat. She was the flagship jewel in the Cunard White Star Cruise Line crown. At 1,019 feet long, the Queen Mary was the longest ship in the world. Even longer than the Eiffel Tower is tall. She was a giantess of the sea. She was bigger, faster, and stronger than the ill-fated Titanic. And her craftsmanship was unparalleled for its time. The Queen Mary was literally one of a kind. And as a passenger ship, she was considered one of the most elegant ever built. During this North Atlantic liner's reign, she heralded celebrities as well as political dignitaries and countless guests and famous people. Elizabeth Taylor, Dwight D. Eisenhower, even the Kennedys. It was a luxurious, upscale, amenity-filled floating hotel for those in the know. Life aboard the ship was glamorous in its heyday, throwing these amazing gala parties that you hear about and that you picture when you think about the Titanic. The Queen Mary did it bigger. Her power did not go unnoticed, and during the course of World War II, the Queen Mary was drafted as a transport ship. She carried Allied troops to the heart of the battle. Her reign went from 1936 to 1967 when she was decommissioned and parked in Long Beach, California, where now she serves as a floating hotel and a living museum. So among Queen Mary's really rich history, she's got some secrets that are coming out of the woodwork as we speak. So among being this really interesting hotel that you can go stay at, the Queen Mary is riddled with ghost stories. And we're going to touch on a few of those today. She has made her way as the penultimate ghost hunting bucket list, from disembodied voices, Lady in White, and even haunted rooms so haunted that they harm people. So these ghost stories, where did they all begin? Well, countless ghost hunters have encountered the Queen Mary. They've gone on and they've seen things. In the early morning hours of June 10th, 1966, the Queen Mary ran some safety drills. Run-of-the-mill safety drills. This happened on the boat all the time and the crew was used to it. However, on this day, things drastically changed. Tragically, 18-year-old John Petter, a crew member that worked down in the engine area, tragically lost his life while attempting to squeeze through door number 13 in the engine room during this 60-second drill. He didn't make it. He gravely miscalculated, and unfortunately the door closed on him, crushing him instantly, and efforts to save his life went without. He was already gone. Now he's referred to as Half-Hatch Harry, which I think is kind of sad to refer to someone as that, but it's alleged that he is still in the engine room. Nowadays, it's said that those visiting the engine room will see a man with overall and kind of work clothes that are out of date actually vanishing through the walls. So this Half-Hatch Harry that they call him, I really hate that nickname, by the way. Those visiting Shaft Alley have reported seeing what they believe to be this 18-year-old, but a bearded man in dated overalls, following them around, giving them stern looks, but when they turn to go towards him, he simply vanishes. Usually this is near door number 13. There's a lot of those type of stories happening when it comes to John Petter, and I hope he rests peacefully. There are also claims of women's purses being tugged at, bags being pulled, the sound of clanging on the pipes. And in one really funny episode of BuzzFeed Unsolved, they thought that they saw a person, but it was actually a light. So be careful what you think you see. This sad tale is hardly one of the saddest in the Queen Mary. Because of its long history, there are multiple stories, and none so as sad as in the room B474. Now, allegedly, a man killed his wife and children in this room, and their spirits sort of never left. There is a rumor that Disney, who kind of runs the show, made up this story, but there is some newspaper articles stating that a man had killed his wife and children. They're just not sure that it was this specific room, but I digress. So he kills his wife, one child, His daughter sees him, he kills her, and then ends himself in the bathroom of this room. Some say that on this particular deck, the B deck, a young girl by the name of Dana is kind of present and will speak to you. Some say that that's the daughter of the man. Some say it's just a little girl that was kind of a stowaway in the cargo hold, but she'll play hide and go seek with you, which is kind of cute. Ghost hunters did investigate, and they said that they found an orb that they supposed to be the young girl, though this is not 100% because orbs are iffy pieces of evidence if you ask me. Visitors have also reported seeing Dana visiting the second floor pool, desperately crying out for her mother, which is just heartbreaking. One of the most famous spirits on the Queen Mary is that of Jackie. It's not known exactly how Jacqueline Torin passed away. However, she has never left the Queen Mary. They say that she did die in the second class pool, but they don't really say how she died. Maybe she slipped and fell, maybe she drowned, who knows? But Jackie is more than willing to speak with you when you go to the Queen Mary. She is chatty and one of the most recorded voices on the Queen Mary. Check it out for yourself. Reports say that the staff will coax Jackie into singing a little ditty for you, a little song. Maybe. Many people report hearing her laughing, singing, giggling, and kind of playing around in the pool. She's quite friendly and more than willing to let you know she's there in a happy way, which is nice. Kathy Love, a maintenance supervisor on the ship, said that one day she walked in and she could hear the sound of a little girl playing in the pool, looked over and saw splashing happening in the pool, which is kind of cute. If the girl was alive, it'd be cuter. And then as they continued to observe the scene, they saw wet footprints walking into the change room. They were that of a child. Never seen a ghost do that, but it would be really interesting if that was true. So as I said before, the Queen Mary was drafted during World War II to serve as a passenger ferry, as it were. Active duty for her country. It was during this time that this beautiful liner was painted completely gray so that she was less detectable in the waters, and earned the nickname of the Gray Ghost because she was so lightning fast and almost undetectable on radar. They would actually position her to travel in a zigzag pattern so that she was less detectable and also was less prone to attacks by U-boats. One time, Germany made it clear that the Queen Mary was a target and would pay $250,000 to see her sunk. So it was during this time that the Queen Mary kind of stopped in the water where she was and was now being directed by a smaller boat called the Curacao. They were trying to avoid her being sunk from this intense U-boat attack that was imminent. So in 1942, the Curacao was struggling to keep up with the Queen Mary because she was so fast, and decided to kind of recoup some of their loss by traveling straight while Mary zigzagged. The Queen Mary accidentally caught the Curacao and literally severed it in half. But really even more abysmal is that due to orders, the Queen Mary had to keep sailing on and leave the Curacao behind. And by the time that any help arrived for the Curacao, most of the crew members had died. It only took 6 minutes for the entire boat to sink. While working on the ship, marine engineer John Smith could hear metal tearing and water running, and then men screaming. Allegedly now you can hear the screaming still in the bow of the ship when on tours of the Queen Mary. Some people believe it's the spirits of the members of the Curacao reliving their death at the tip of the Queen Mary. On some occasions, people say that they've heard the sound of fists pounding the side of the boat from the outside, thinking that maybe it was the members of the Curacao begging to be let in. It's so sad. There are some reports of people seeing little spirit faces through the portcullises, or the little circular windows, and then when you see them, they dart away. Who knows? Very common sounds from all over the ship are that of clanking noises, men working on the ship, and men's voices shouting. People hear this all the time. So there's a distinctive presence on the first class pool. Yes, the ship had more than one swimming pool, of that of a woman in a bathing suit, and that's pretty something. So the Queen Mary's manifest of how many passengers have been on the ship, the guest list is a little bit long, so it's hard to pinpoint exactly who she is, but it's a woman in her late 20s, early 30s in a bathing suit from the 30s. Some claim to have seen specific puddles or watery footprints right before she appears. She'll dip into the pool, kind of luxuriate around, and then disappear really fast. Carol Layden, who was a server on the ship, said that she worked there for 14 years before she finally saw or had an encounter with this woman. She said that one day she was working and she picked up a coffee and she went out to one of the tables and there was a woman sitting there at the table by herself. There were no other guests in the room and there was no one else working at the time. And she was kind of fascinated by this woman sitting there. It was a woman in like a cocktail-like dress from around the 40s. That's pretty accurate. With dark hair rolled up and no makeup on. She said that she seemed really pale, but she never saw her move. She left the table alone. She went into the kitchen for a minute. She came back out. The woman was gone. Other people that work in this area have claimed that they are not alone or have seen this woman or other guests kind of still hanging around even though they are not really there. The one thing that I find really hard to come to terms with is that of its 355 rooms, the Queen Mary says that all of them are haunted. Every single room has had some kind of paranormal experience. So what is actually going on in this place? Is it a portal? So there's 12 decks. And of all of them, the B deck seems to be the most supernatural. People say that room B340 is the scariest place to be on the ship, although they also say that about another room. Security guards and the front desk staff have said that people have a hard time spending the entire night there. Women are specifically attacked in this area. The spirit is very vindictive towards women. Some say that it's the man that murdered his children, but they also say that that's another room. But guests report hearing really unusual noises. Really out of the ordinary. Some people say about room B340 is that someone had slain themselves in that room and that they don't want anyone else to be in there. Another report is that a pregnant woman, a pregnant bride, isolated herself in that room, didn't want anyone to come in, so she attacks those who come in, and I believe she died with the baby. It's hard to say. One thing I will say is that room B340 used to be completely empty. It was more so just like a cargo hold where they would put storage. Now they've redecorated it to be a room. They include things like an Ouija board and crystals and like a bunch of weird stuff to try and get you. They even have, disrespectfully, a Bloody Mary instruction manual posted on the wall for those who want to play that while they're in that room. I find that that's playing a little bit too hard into it, and you shouldn't be encouraging people to play that game. So this is kind of my favorite story because it's just so ridiculous. So September 18th, 1949. Senior Staff Officer William E. Stark was on the hunt for some gin. That is my kind of guy. The captain of the ship had given him permission to go into his quarters and drink his gin because he had some good gin sitting there. So he didn't actually go in the room. He sent a steward, F.R. Stokes, to go and retrieve the alcohol for him from the room. Stokes wanders in, grabs the alcohol, and leaves with it, gives it to Stokes. Unbeknownst to Stokes, this bottle did not possess gin, but actually a cleaning solution, tetrachloride. So Stokes is drinking this before he realizes that it's not actually beautiful gin, and walks in and says, something is wrong. I think I've drunk some kind of acid, because it would obviously burn. And the kid says, I'm sorry, sir, I thought it was gin. In the days following, Stokes fell into a coma and died after consuming this tetrachloride. To this day, Stokes has been seen ethereally floating through the corridors and makes an appearance from time to time, probably still looking for some gin. I've got some, buddy. Don't worry, I got you. No ghost story would ever be complete. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about A Lady in White. Oh, wrong song. Anyways, so this woman is often seen dancing the night away in the saloon of the Queen Mary. Formerly known as the First Class Lounge, now it's referred to as the saloon. Or is it salon? When she's not dancing the night away, this lady is often seen floating through the corridors. She's in the elevators and she's going up and down the stairs. She gets around. This is an active ghost. One really terrifying occurrence that happens on the Queen Mary quite often and is very much talked about is that of the shadow people. Now, I see shadow people as the watchers. They just kind of hang out. They don't really do anything. But in the stories that ensue, they're a little bit scary. They tend to lurk around and stare at people for no reason. There are allegedly photos of these shadow people slinking around the ship. Most describe seeing them out of the corner of their eye through their peripheral vision, or skirting along the edges of the doorways and halls. Ooh, chills. But it's hard to imagine that the Queen Mary doesn't have quite a few stories. Over its time as an Allied transport ship, it ferried more than 800,000 people during World War II over the water. She was completely stripped of her identity when she became the Grey Ghost. They removed all of her furniture, all of her lavish surroundings, and it was just a bare-bones ship. This was to double her normal capacity so that she could help protect more people. Fun fact, the Queen Mary still holds the record for the most amount of people held on a vessel, and that's around 16,683 people at one time in one ship. But this was dangerously overcrowding the ship. And ultimately during this time, because of security, really good records were not kept on this ship. World War II was a time of secrecy. While crossing the Red Sea, there was no getting over the fact that it was 120 degrees Celsius outside, and this ship was full of soldiers. So you can imagine that it was really uncomfortable, and everyone had a great time. A lot of people died. They said that at some points in the voyage, it was so extremely hot that there was a burial at sea every 4 hours. This would explain the A and B decks having numerous amounts of ghost activity featuring World War II uniform-clad soldiers wandering the decks and making a heck of a lot of racket. I feel like they deserved better if they were going to go to war for their country, but I digress. And there were actually a lot of EVPs caught with men screaming military-specific things into the electronic voice phenomena. So the Queen Mary has a resident restaurant. It's called Sir Winston's. It's named after Sir Winston Churchill. Accurate. He really liked ghosts. I made a TikTok about it. There is one really specific ghost there that is nicknamed the Dude. His black hair is slicked back. Apparently he's always wearing like a top hat and tails, which is really fancy, so that's why they call him the Dude. So people have seen him in some corridors, but he's mostly in Sir Winston's. He's known to clear his throat. He's known to clear his throat loudly behind guests, but when they kind of notice him, he makes a hasty retreat every time. That's really funny. He's been known to enjoy a drink at the bar with a big bright smile on his face. That's also my kind of guy. It's really ironic that they named this restaurant after him, but one of their most frequent visitors of the ship was Sir Winston Churchill himself. And for those who are in the know, the man loved the occult. He stayed on the Queen Mary several times during World War II. And the entire M deck was reserved specifically for him and his entourage. I wonder if he ever did any like ghosty stuff on there, because he was really into that kind of stuff. Winston, if you're out there, record me an EVP. It was on one of his trips on the Queen Mary that he actually signed the declaration for D-Day. The more you know. So people have reported seeing sights of actually Churchill, along with some bumps and thumps, things that you would expect to hear with ghost activity. But they see Churchill himself wandering the halls, as well as on the promenade and the sun decks. The man did love his stogies. The most common occurrence of people thinking that they have seen Winston Churchill is when they smell his very strong cigar smoke, mostly on the M deck. It's like so strong that it chokes you, but weirdly enough is no one's allowed to smoke on the ship. So the final ghost story on the ship is a really different one, not one you hear every day. Apparently there are a lot of ghost cats meowing on the ship. So if you get visited by a ghost cat, I find that that's kind of interesting. People will have them brush up against their legs. Skeptics have really searched this place and have yet to come up with any photographic or otherwise evidence of actual ghost cats. For me, it's hard to say that the Queen Mary is not actually haunted. There's so much evidence available. I think that this is one of the few times when it's undeniable for me that a place would be haunted. I wouldn't recommend doing Bloody Mary in the bathroom, but I definitely recommend a visit. Please be respectful of the spirits, and make sure that you take the time to learn a little bit more about them so that you can talk to them. So what are your thoughts on the Queen Mary? Is she really haunted? I know I didn't cover everything exhaustively. I just did the most common stories, but I'd love to know your thoughts. Please put them in the comment section down below. Also be sure to like, and if you're not already, please subscribe. Also, I'd love to know more about what you're going to do for Halloween. It's spooky season. I look forward to seeing you, my friends, in the next one.